Americans For Fair Taxation presents the weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans For Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, October 1st, 2021. Americans are great at what they do. This week's Chairman's Report is guest written by Jade Walle. Now, Jade's a partner in a CPA firm, and he's on the board of Americans For Fair Taxation. Jade explains why the fair tax will enable Americans to accomplish even more. Now, often it seems when we connect with family, friends, loved ones, and colleagues, some of the most negative, gut-wrenching stories we hear are how issues with business, university, regulatory, or other compliance regimes have inhibited, curtailed, stymied, or otherwise caused severe damage to an employment, business, entrepreneurial, or other type of endeavor that we and our loved ones have pursued. Now, it's undoubtedly true that our nation's income payroll tax regime has contributed heavily to this unfortunate reality that we've all become much too accustomed to. And unfortunately, it looks like it's only going to get worse with each piece of potential legislation that our country's leaders attempt to pass into law. It's an important historical fact that our country was created to be one of the most business-friendly entities ever established in all of the world's history. There were no federal income taxes to be concerned with. In fact, the Founding Fathers specifically forbade direct taxation in the original Constitution. There was no bureaucratic red tape to overcome as it relates to a multitude of endless regulations. Americans were free to blaze their own trails, free of hindrance by an overreaching and overbearing government or throne. They were restrained only by their God-given abilities, potential, savvy, and business acumen. Now, while it's common to complain of government overreach and an oppressive income payroll tax system, it is noteworthy to bring forward a well-researched, studied, and feasible plan to reverse the cancer that is our current income tax system. Upon enactment of the fair tax, a significant component of our bloated and out-of-touch federal government will single-handedly disappear and put power to choose and once again blaze one's own trail back into the hands of our amazing American citizens. As a CPA, I have seen firsthand how many companies feel handcuffed, or at the very least, extremely hindered as it relates to potential business transactions such as mergers, acquisitions, joint ventures, or common control transactions, etc. It's not an exaggeration to point out that a good number of potential acquisitions, divestitures, and other arrangements have been not just delayed, but outright abandoned due entirely to our punitive and cumbersome income tax system. These companies just didn't want to deal with the potential negative income tax consequences of such transactions that otherwise would have been positive for the company's owners, employees, and investors. In other words, the company, its employees, investors, customers, and the country as a whole missed out on a more streamlined company that would have realized greater economies of scale. The company that never happened would have brought greater value to all stakeholders, such as lower cost, more research and development, higher 401k and IRA valuations, greater employee wages or employee headcount growth, and that's to name just a few of the multitude of ancillary benefits that were foregone. The key message is that Americans are great at what they do. We're entrepreneurial, creative, innovative, empathetic, kind, generous, and relentlessly hardworking. Now, this unique set of cultural traits that Americans engender deserve a special type of government construct. Now, if Americans were generally apathetic, disinterested, lacking talent, and generally devoid of healthy ambition, then perhaps a controlling central government would be needed to ensure an appropriate division of labor, resources, and means of production. However, given our aforementioned traits, and at the risk of sounding arrogant, we as Americans deserve the very best type of government. Now, of course, no government is perfect, and there are many aspects of our U.S. federal government that could be criticized. Our antiquated and incomprehensible income payroll tax system is clearly one of those things. Getting rid of it would single-handedly bring more freedom, progress, and energy back into American workers and entrepreneurs than anything else, all in one fell swoop. Now, if Americans are great at what they do, and I wholeheartedly believe that to be the case, and if Americans, through their ingenuity, astuteness, creativity, ambition, empathy, and love, have time and again proven their ability to overcome, solve problems, and generally make the world a better place through its products and services, Can't we at least get the government out of their way? Can't we at least provide a business climate and environment that is conducive to allowing Americans to be their best uninhibited? Now, to be clear, getting the government out of the way of its best and brightest doesn't mean abandoning all regulation. We just have to be sure that those regulations are fair to the consumer, good for the environment, and good for national security. What it does mean is that to the greatest degree possible, government bureaucrats and regulators would not be involved in the day-to-day world of American companies and businesses. The fair tax makes this seemingly unimaginable description of a fair American business paradigm an actual reality. In conclusion, all of us can understand the points that Jade's making. We often ask the question, why don't our members of Congress see this plain truth? Well, the answer is that they do, but their strings are being pulled not by us, but by the ruling class. The ruling class is only looking to help themselves and the people who pay them. To them, we're just little people who have to be tolerated. But we have a lot more leverage than most people realize. We, the people, have the power to demand that our representative do what's right or face getting thrown out of office. So, what can each of us do? We can write letters and make calls to our elected representatives demanding that if the government really wants to eliminate the burden of filing income tax returns, they should enact the fair tax and do away with tax returns altogether. The great 18th century Irish statesman Edmund Burke made a statement that applies in many ways. Nobody made a greater mistake than he who did nothing because he could only do a little. Take back control. Help pass the fair tax. The IRS will be gone and will pay our taxes when we make purchases. We, not the ruling class and their minions in D.C., will decide how much federal tax we pay. If you have friends who don't know about the fair tax, send them to FAIRtax.org. Have them watch the whiteboards under how it works, and if they agree, ask them to please join us. Then, contact your members of Congress and the President and demand that Congress pass the fair tax, the only truly fair tax.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at FAIRtax.org.